My husband and I went into the store for our usual shopping. As we were nearing the checkout, he stepped aside to answer a phone call. I paid and was about to leave when an elderly security guard approached me. "Is that your husband?" he asked. I nodded. He quietly said, "Come with me, dear. This is about your husband. You need to see it for yourself. Have you ever looked into the eyes of the person you loved most, only to realize they were a monster, meticulously plotting to steal everything you had and utterly destroy your life?" Because that's the day my entire world shattered. It was a gray, dreary autumn morning, just like any other. Rain pattered against the window as I woke up, feeling a bit tired. I stretched, threw back the blanket, and headed to the kitchen, where the comforting smell of coffee was already wafting. My husband, Ben, was at the table, glued to his phone, occasionally taking a sip from his favorite blue mug. "Good morning," I said, pouring my own coffee. "Morning," he grunted, not looking up. I sat across from him, just watching him. We'd been together for 7 years. 7 years that, to me, had seemed pretty happy. But lately, something had shifted. Ben had grown distant, stayed late at work, and his phone had become this impenetrable fortress. I tried to push away the creeping dread. "He's probably just tired," I told myself. "His job is stressful. Lots of pressure. We need to go to the store," I said, taking a bite of toast. "The fridge is almost empty, and we need to get groceries for the weekend." Ben nodded, still absorbed in his screen. "Okay, let's go after lunch. I just need to make a couple of calls." I gave a faint smile. Always calls, always errands. But I didn't argue. I rarely argued. Maybe that was my mistake, being too accommodating, too soft. The day dragged on. I cleaned, organized closets, tidied shelves. This apartment, you see, was mine. It came from my mother after she passed away, a 2-bedroom in a lovely neighborhood. Ben moved in with me then, and it became our home. It was cozy, bright, with big windows overlooking an old park. This place was my sanctuary, my childhood home. I felt safe here. Around 3 p.m., Ben came out of the bedroom, dressed and ready. "So, shall we go?" he asked, grabbing the car keys. I quickly grabbed my jacket and bag. The drive to the supermarket took about 15 minutes. Light music played on the radio. Ben tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, while I gazed out at the wet streets, people with umbrellas, and wondered how we'd gotten here. I remembered meeting him at a friend's office party. He was so charming, so attentive. We talked all evening, and I truly felt like I'd found the one. He was 5 years older, a sales manager, always traveling. He could talk his way into anything, make anyone like him. I fell hard, fast, completely. The first few years were great. Vacations, friends over, cooking dinners. He was so sweet. Flowers for no reason, constant compliments. I felt loved, truly needed. But gradually, things changed. At first, subtly, then alarmingly obvious. He became withdrawn, irritable. His phone was a permanent extension of his hand. When I asked what was wrong, he'd just say work problems, stress. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. The supermarket was huge, modern, with bright lights. We grabbed a cart, and I pulled out my shopping list. Ben walked beside me, occasionally tossing in chips or soda. I methodically checked off items. I actually enjoyed this, picking fresh vegetables, reading labels. In the dairy section, I grabbed cottage cheese, kefir, sour cream. Ben was nearby, but clearly distracted. His phone glowed, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Who are you texting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Waiting for something. "No, just a colleague promised to send some documents," he replied, slipping the phone into his pocket. I nodded, continuing with my shopping. We reached the bread section. The warm, yeasty smell filled the air. So comforting. I picked up a loaf, a few cinnamon rolls. Ben loved them. I always tried to make him happy, to take care of him. Maybe I tried too hard. Maybe he'd taken it all for granted for too long. Suddenly, Ben stopped. He frowned, staring at his phone. His face tensed. "I need to take this call," he snapped. "It's important. I'll step aside for a minute." "All right, I'll head to the checkout," I said. He nodded and walked quickly towards the exit of the sales floor, phone to his ear. I watched him go. Something about his behavior was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. He's just tired, I thought. Work stress. I pushed the unpleasant thoughts away. Still needed meat and fish. I picked out a good chicken, fresh salmon, perfect for baking. I put them in the cart and headed to the checkout. The line was short. I stood there, glancing at the magazines, smiling couples, perfect dinners. If only it were that simple, I smirked. An elderly woman was ahead of me, fumbling for coins. I waited, lost in thought. How our life had changed. How lonely I felt, even with him beside me. We hadn't really talked in ages, hadn't laughed, hadn't made plans. Soon, I was placing my groceries on the conveyor belt. Beep, beep, beep. The cashier scanned everything. I looked towards the exit, trying to spot Ben, but he was nowhere. Must be a really long call. $320, the cashier said. I tapped my card. Transaction approved. I gathered my bags and headed for the exit. Ben still wasn't there. I stopped by a brochure stand, waiting. 10 minutes had passed since he walked away. It was weird. His work calls never took this long. Another minute. Then another. Panic started to prickle at my skin. Where was he? Had something happened? I reached for my phone to call him, but then an elderly man in a security guard uniform approached me. He was short, stout, about 60, with kind, weathered eyes. "Anthony's my name," he said quietly. "You came here with a man, correct?" My heart skipped a beat. Something in his voice set me on edge. "Yes, with my husband." "What happened?" Anthony hesitated, choosing his words carefully. He looked around, then back at me. Worry was etched on his face, a kind of pity that scared me even more. He sighed heavily. "Come with me, dear," he said softly. "It's about your husband. You better see this yourself." My heart plummeted. "What? Is he okay? What do you want to show me?" My voice trembled. "What happened?" "Come with me," Anthony said, gently taking my elbow. "I'll explain everything." "Not here. Let's go to the staff area." I felt completely flustered. My first instinct was to run, to find Ben, to demand answers. But something in the guard's demeanor made me trust him. Maybe it was his almost fatherly concern. "All right," I whispered. "I'll go with you." He led me through a plain gray, staff-only door. Inside, a narrow, dimly lit corridor. It smelled of cleaning chemicals and old paint. My pulse quickened. What was going on? What was he going to show me? 1,000 terrifying thoughts raced through my mind. Is Ben in trouble? Did he get caught stealing? No, that's ridiculous. Ben would never steal. We entered a small room, the security office. Monitors displayed camera feeds from around the store. An old sofa, a thermos, mugs, charts, schedules. Simple, functional. "Please have a seat," Anthony said, gesturing to a chair. I sat, hands trembling, clenching them into fists. My mouth was dry. "What happened?" I asked again, my voice barely a whisper. "Please tell me. You're scaring me." Anthony closed the door and went to the monitors. He paused, sighed deeply. Then he turned to me. "You see, dear," he began quietly, "I've worked here 5 years. I've seen all kinds of things, and I've learned to read people. When you see thousands of people every day, you notice details others miss." I listened, chest tightening. I wanted him to get to the point, but part of me dreaded it. "When you and your husband came in," Anthony continued, "I noticed him. Something about his behavior was off. Too tense, checking his phone, glancing around nervously. I just know when someone's hiding something." My stomach turned. I wanted to protest, to say he was wrong, that Ben was just tired. But the words died in my throat. "When he stepped away from you, I followed him on the cameras." Anthony's voice dropped. "Just out of curiosity, you understand? I didn't want to pry, but something told me I needed to watch. And I saw something that really concerned me." He met my eyes. The ground beneath me shifted. Blood rushed to my face, then drained, and the room blurred. "With a woman," I whispered. "Which woman? What are you talking about?" "I'll show you," the guard said, turning to the monitors. "Our cameras record audio in some areas. And right in that corner where they were talking, one of those cameras is installed. I listened to their conversation and realized I had to show it to you. I couldn't just stay silent." He pressed buttons, rewinding footage. I sat frozen. This had to be a mistake. A misunderstanding. Ben couldn't betray me. He just couldn't. "Here, look," Anthony said softly, pointing. On the monitor, I saw Ben. He was in a far corner of the store. Next to him, a woman I'd never seen. Elegant, about 40, expensive coat, high heels, flawless makeup. She looked confident, businesslike. Ben stood very close to her. Too close for an acquaintance. They were leaning into each other. This was no chance encounter. My heart pounded. My hands went cold. My mouth was bone dry. I'll turn the sound on now, Anthony said quietly. Get ready, daughter. What you're about to hear will be hard. He turned the volume knob. At first, just the general hum of the store. Distant voices. Carts. Then Ben's voice. My Ben's voice. The one I'd heard every day for 7 years. The one that said, I love you. Wish me good morning, promise to always be there. Everything is going according to plan, Ben said. No warmth. Cold. Businesslike. Calculating. I've already started preparing the documents. Found the right lawyer who agreed to help for a certain amount. And when will it be ready? The woman asked. Her voice was low, confident, with a slight rasp. We don't have much time. The apartment has to be transferred to you by the end of the month, or the whole plan will fall apart. My insides tightened. Apartment? My apartment? What are they talking about? Everything will be done on time, Ben replied. The lawyer has already started preparing fake documents about debts. We'll make it look like Amanda suddenly has large debts to several creditors. There'll be shell companies, of course, but the papers will look completely legal. The woman nodded, a satisfied smile on her face. Good job. And then, Ben continued, then we go to court to declare her incapacitated. Death, stress, inability to manage financial obligations. Plus, I'll find a couple of doctors I know who will confirm she has mental health issues. People will sign anything for money. And then they'll appoint you as her guardian, the woman concluded. You'll get full control over her property. The apartment will be yours, and we can sell it. We'll split the money in half, just as agreed. I listened, trapped in a nightmare. This can't be happening. This can't be true. This can't be him. Ben, the man I shared a bed with, cooked breakfast for, planned a future with, the man I loved. She suspects nothing, the woman asked, looking around. Ben smirked, a smirk full of contempt. Amanda? She's too trusting and stupid to suspect anything. She believes every word I say. The perfect victim. Honestly, I've been preparing for this moment for 7 years. 7 years. Pretending to be a loving husband, putting up with her nagging, her endless, pointless conversations. And now, finally, everything is coming to the climax. Tears streamed down my face. 7 years. 7 years, he pretended. 7 years of my life were a lie. Everything I believed, everything I thought was real, was a carefully planned deception. Are you sure the court will side with us? The woman asked. After all, this is serious. Stripping someone of their legal capacity isn't easy. I have connections, Ben replied. The judge handling the case has already received his share. He'll issue the right ruling. The main thing is that the documents look convincing, and the lawyer I hired specializes in these kinds of cases. He's handled schemes like this before. He has a whole network of shell companies that supposedly issued loans. How much can we get for the apartment? The woman asked, her voice dripping with greed. At least 12 million, Ben replied. The apartment is in a good area, nicely renovated. Spacious. There will always be buyers for such a place. 6 million each. Not a bad sum for 7 years of work. Don't you agree? The woman laughed. You've always been practical, Ben. That's exactly what I value about you. Not like those sentimental fools who believe in love and fidelity. Love and fidelity, Ben snorted. Fairy tales for the naive. In real life, only money and connections matter. Everything else is empty chatter. I sat there, tears soaking my face. I didn't wipe them away. I just stared at the screen, listening as the man I trusted more than anyone calmly discussed a plan to destroy me. Not physically. No, that would have been too crude. He planned to destroy me as a person, to strip me of everything I had, to turn me into a helpless victim, completely dependent on him. When do we move into the active phase? The woman asked. Next week, Ben replied. The lawyer is already preparing the documents. A few more days, and we'll start filing fake lawsuits from creditors. Amanda will receive subpoenas. Of course, she'll be in shock. I'll play the role of the caring husband, trying to help her. I'll say I'll try to negotiate with the creditors, pay off the debts, but naturally nothing will work. The debts will grow. The interest will keep accruing. And then I'll suggest she sign a power of attorney for managing the finances. I'll say it'll be easier for me to sort everything out that way. And if she refuses to sign, the woman asked. She won't, Ben said confidently. She trusts me. Besides, I'll gradually start convincing her that she has problems with her head. I'll say she's become forgetful, absent-minded, that something's wrong with her. I'll start taking her to psychotherapists who will give the necessary diagnosis. In a couple of months, we'll have enough medical reports to file for her to be declared legally incapacitated. I closed my eyes. It was monstrous, unbelievable, like a bad movie script. But this was reality, my reality. And what then? The woman asked. After we sell the apartment, divorce? Yes, Ben answered simply. I'll file for divorce, take my share of the money, and disappear. By then, she'll already be officially declared incapacitated, so she won't be able to make any claims. Some social services will be appointed as her guardian and let them deal with her. Cruel, the woman said, no sympathy in her voice. Just a dry statement of fact. Life is cruel, Ben replied. The ones who survive are the smart and calculating ones. Amanda is too soft, too trusting. People like that are ideal victims. I realized that long ago. Even when we first met, I assessed the situation right away. She was lonely, had no parents, owned an apartment, an ideal option. I deliberately started courting her, saying pretty words, giving flowers. Women fall for those banalities so easily. I opened my eyes and looked at the screen. There was Ben, in his usual jacket and jeans, the ones I had washed and ironed. His face was calm, satisfied, smiling at that woman. There was nothing human in that smile. It was the smile of a predator. So, in a month, it will all be over, the woman asked. 2 months at most, Ben replied. Courts sometimes drag things out, but everything's under control. The judge, the lawyers, the doctors, they've all been paid. The system works flawlessly. The main thing is not to rush and to do everything carefully. The woman nodded. Good. I'm waiting for results. And remember, no mistakes. If something goes wrong, we could both end up in a very unpleasant situation. Everything will be clean, Ben assured her. I've thought through every detail. Amanda won't even understand what happened until it's too late. They talked a bit more. Details, documents, sums. I listened as if through cotton wool. The words reached me, but I couldn't process them anymore. Inside, I felt empty. 7 years of my life a lie. The man I loved, slept beside, shared everything with, was a monster. Anthony turned off the sound and looked at me. His face was full of compassion. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said quietly. I know how hard this is, but you had to know. I couldn't let this happen. I've seen too many stories like this. People lose everything because of scum like this. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. The words wouldn't come. The tears kept flowing, but I didn't even notice. You have to act quickly, Anthony continued. You have evidence. This recording is logged in our system, timestamped and certified. It's official material. With this kind of proof, you'll be able to protect yourself, but you need to act now before they start carrying out their plan. I looked up at him. My eyes were red, my face pale. What should I do? I whispered. I don't know what to do. Anthony crouched beside me, placed his large, warm hand on my shoulder. Right now, you're going to record this video on your phone, he said firmly. I'll help you. This will be your evidence. Then you'll go back into the store as if nothing happened. Don't show him you know anything. That's very important. He mustn't suspect a thing. But I can't, I whispered. I can't stand next to him and pretend everything is fine. I'm not an actress. You can, Anthony said firmly. You're stronger than you think. And I'll help you. The most important thing right now is to stay calm. You'll go out to him and say, I delayed you because of some formality, a receipt check, anything. He won't suspect anything. And then when you get home, or even right here, you'll call the police. I nodded. My hands were still trembling, but something new ignited in my chest. Not just pain, but anger. Rage. How dare he? How dare he do this to me? I loved him, trusted him, and all this time he was planning my destruction. Help me record it, I said, my voice growing steadier. Right now. Anthony nodded. He took my phone, quickly found the settings, pointed the camera at the monitor. He turned the recording back on. I watched my phone screen reflect the surveillance footage. Ben and that woman, talking again, discussing their vile plan. Anthony recorded everything, video, sound, every word, every detail. Done, he said, handing the phone back. Now you have evidence. Save it in several places. Email it to yourself. Upload it to the cloud. So even if something happens to your phone, the recording won't be lost. I nodded, shaking, but managed to email the video. Then I uploaded it to cloud storage. Safe. What should I do next? I asked. Call the police right now, Anthony said. The woman is still here too. They can detain both of them. The police will have the footage from our cameras and your recording. The evidence will be airtight. I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was determination. I would not let them destroy my life. I would not let that monster take everything I had. Okay, I said firmly. I'll call the police right now. Anthony nodded approvingly. Well done, sweetheart. You're doing the right thing. I'll be right here. If you need help, I'm always here. I pulled out my phone. My fingers no longer trembled. I was focused. When the dispatcher answered, I explained the situation clearly, concisely. Attempted fraud, planning a crime, video recordings, the store's address, descriptions of the suspects. The dispatcher promised officers would arrive within 10 minutes. They're on their way, I said, lowering the phone. 10 minutes. Good, Anthony said. Now we need to make sure your husband and that woman don't leave. I'll go into the store and keep an eye on them. If they try to leave, I'll delay them under some pretext. You stay here. Calm down. When the police arrive, we'll go out together. I nodded. Anthony patted my shoulder and left. I was alone. I sat down, closing my eyes. A storm of emotions. Pain, anger, resentment, disappointment. 7 years. Deceived for 7 years. Living with my enemy. But now was not the time for tears. Now was the time to act. I wiped my eyes, straightened my back. I was not a victim. I would not let them turn me into one. I had evidence. I had support. And I would fight. I watched the monitors. Somewhere among the shoppers was the man I thought was my husband. I stood, splashed cold water on my face. I had to look normal. He mustn't suspect. 5 minutes passed. Ben appeared on a feed, walking between aisles, clearly looking for me. Irritated. The woman was at the magazine rack, scrolling on her phone. I clenched my fists. So calm. So confident. They had no idea. My phone rang. Ben. I flinched, then answered, trying to sound normal. Hello, where are you? His voice was annoyed. I've been looking for you for 10 minutes. Did you get lost in the store? Sorry, I said, surprised at my own calm voice. The security guard held me up. Some problem with the receipt. We're sorting it out now. The receipt? Ben repeated. What kind of problem? Some system error, I lied. They say the item was scanned twice. They're checking it. I'll be free soon. All right, Ben grumbled. I'll wait for you at the exit. Just hurry. I've got things to do today. Things. Probably with the lawyer or the corrupt doctor. All right, I'll be there soon, I said and hung up. I saw him on the monitors, heading to the exit, hands in his pockets. Just a man. No one would ever know. A few more minutes. Sirens. The police. My heart raced. This was it. Anthony came in. The police are here, he said. I'll bring them in. Are you ready? I nodded. Ready. He left, and soon 2 officers entered, a middle-aged man and a young woman. Professional. Good afternoon, the senior officer said. Did you call the police? Report a fraud attempt. Yes, that's me, I said, my voice trembling despite myself. I have evidence. My husband. He plans to steal my apartment, create fake debts, declare me incompetent. The officers exchanged glances. Do you have proof? The female officer asked. Yes. I pulled out my phone. I have a video. He spoke with his accomplice right here in the store. The cameras recorded everything. They discussed the whole plan in detail. I showed them the video. They watched, listened, their faces growing serious. When it ended, the senior officer nodded. This is serious. Planning fraud, document forgery, possibly corruption. Where are your husband and that woman now? In the sales floor, Anthony replied. I'm watching them through the cameras. The man is waiting by the exit. The woman is in the magazine section. All right, the officer said. We'll detain them now to clarify the circumstances. You'll need to give a statement at the station, but first, let's handle things here. I nodded. My stomach churned. Soon I would see Ben. See his face when he realized. Part of me feared it, but another part, fueled by anger, craved it. I wanted to see his confidence crumble. The officers left the room. I followed. Anthony walked beside me, whispering encouragement. Everything will be fine, sweetheart. You're doing the right thing. We stepped onto the sales floor. There was Ben, by the exit on his phone. Normal. Just a man waiting for his wife. The officers walked toward him. I followed, my legs weak. Ben looked up, saw the officers frowned. Then his gaze fell on me. Confusion, then fear. Ben Volkov, the senior officer asked. Yes, that's me, Ben replied, wary. What's this about? You need to come with us for questioning, the officer said. There is information about planned fraud. Ben's face changed. Confusion, then rising anxiety. He looked at me, a mix of disbelief and fear. What are you talking about? He tried to protest, outrage in his voice. What fraud? I don't understand. We'll explain everything at the station, the officer said firmly. For now, please come with us. Ben turned to me, his voice dropping to a pleading tone. What's happening? Can you explain this nonsense? I stared at him, a storm of emotions raging. Pain, anger, disappointment. This man, who had shared my bed for 7 years, spoken words of love. Now he stood there, pretending innocence. I know everything, Ben, I said quietly but firmly. I know about your plan, the fake debts, how you wanted to declare me incompetent and take the apartment. His face went pale. Raw fear flashed in his eyes, but he quickly regained composure. What are you talking about? He muttered weakly. You've got it all wrong. Debts, incompetence. Amanda, are you crazy? I have a recording of your conversation, I said, my voice growing stronger. Where you discussed every detail with that woman. The store cameras recorded everything, including audio. Ben froze. The color drained completely from his face. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His eyes showed complete shock, the realization that everything had collapsed. His perfect plan failed. This must be a misunderstanding, he mumbled weakly. I've understood perfectly. I cut him off. 7 years, Ben. 7 years you've been deceiving me, pretending to be a loving husband while secretly waiting for the moment you could take everything I have. Meanwhile, the female officer headed towards the magazine section where the elegant woman stood. I watched as she approached her. The woman looked up in surprise, began to protest indignantly. But the officer remained firm. Within a minute, they were both walking towards the exit. Ben watched the approaching woman, panic evident in his eyes. Everything was falling apart. His carefully constructed plan was crumbling right here, in front of dozens of curious shoppers. The woman looked at him in confusion. What's happening? She whispered. Shut up. Ben hissed back. Don't say anything. But it was already too late. The senior officer addressed them. We have a video recording of your conversation in which you discuss a fraud scheme. You are both being detained for questioning. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. The elegant woman tried to protest. This is absurd. I don't understand what this is about. I was just shopping. In that case, you can explain everything at the station, the officer replied calmly. But we have a recording of your conversation with this man, discussing a plan to take someone else's property. The woman turned to Ben, fury in her eyes. You idiot, she whispered. You said it would be clean. Shut up. Ben shouted, and the mask finally fell away. Now before me stood a completely different person. Angry, terrified, cornered. The police escorted both of them to the exit. Shoppers parted, watching with curiosity. Someone was even recording on their phone. I followed, feeling a strange emptiness. I thought I'd feel relief, satisfaction. But there was only fatigue and endless sorrow. Police cars with flashing lights waited outside. Ben, and the woman were placed in separate vehicles. Before getting in, Ben turned and looked at me. His eyes held a mixture of anger and something almost like pleading. "Amanda," he called out. "Wait, we can talk this through. It's not what you think." I stopped a few steps away. I looked into those eyes, the eyes I had fallen in love with 7 years ago, which had seemed so honest and kind. "No, Ben," I said quietly. "This is exactly what I think. And even worse, you didn't just betray me. You stole 7 years of my life, made me believe in something that never existed. I loved you, and you just used me." "That's not true," he began, but the officer gently but firmly guided him into the car. I watched the police cars drive away. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Anthony." "Well done, sweetheart," he said warmly. "You did it. It wasn't easy, but you found the strength." "Thank you," I whispered, tears welling up again. "If it weren't for you, I would have never found out. He would have carried out his plan." "I just did what I had to do," Anthony replied. "You can't stand by when injustice is happening. Now you need to be strong. There's still a lot ahead. Statements, court, divorce. But you can handle it. I believe in you." I nodded, wiping my tears. Yes, many difficulties lay ahead, but the worst was already behind me. Now I knew the truth. Bitter as it was the truth. And with this truth, I could move forward. "You'll need to go to the station," the young officer said, approaching. "Give a full statement. We can provide a car for you." "Thank you," I said. "I'll go." I turned to Anthony and hugged him. He was slightly taken aback but returned the embrace. "Thank you," I said again. "Thank you for everything." "You're welcome, sweetheart," he replied. "If you ever need anything, I'm here. Come by and tell me how things are going." I nodded and walked to the police car. As it drove off, I looked out the window. Life went on. My life went on. And now, with the lies exposed, I could begin rebuilding it on an honest foundation. Without deceit, without betrayal. At the police station, I spent hours giving a detailed testimony. Everything. Ben, our life, the store, the footage, the arrest. The investigator, a woman in her 40s with a tired but attentive face, listened. "We have sufficient grounds to open a criminal case," she said. "Planning fraud on a large scale, possible document forgery. If they'd already started creating fake debts. Plus, if the information about bribing a judge is confirmed, that's a separate corruption case. Your husband and his accomplice are in serious trouble. What will happen now?" I asked. "They will be held in custody until trial," the investigator explained. "Given the seriousness of the charges and the risk of flight, they will most likely remain in jail. You will need to attend questioning as required, then testify in court. I also recommend filing for divorce as soon as possible and securing your property." "I will," I said. When I left the station, it was dark. A light drizzle fell. I stood on the steps, looking at the city. Everyone had their own life, their own joys and sorrows. And I had mine, a life that needed to be pieced back together. I called a taxi. Going home felt strange. The home where everything reminded me of Ben, of our life together, which had turned out to be a lie. But it was my home, my apartment, and I would not allow anyone to take it from me. I arrived home late. The apartment was silent, dark. I turned on the light. Everything was in its place. The sofa where we watched movies. The kitchen table where we had breakfast. The photos. Every object a cruel reminder of a past that was an illusion. I went into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and closed my eyes. Exhaustion hit me, physical and emotional. I felt drained, empty. But at the same time, something new stirred inside me. Relief. A strange, contradictory relief that the truth was finally out. No more guessing. Now I knew. The next day, I went to a lawyer. Carolina, a woman in her 50s. Serious, attentive. Her office smelled of coffee and paper. "Tell me everything," she said. I recounted it all. She listened, taking notes. "You did absolutely the right thing," Carolina said when I finished. "You have solid evidence. A video recording clearly documenting the crime. That's a very strong position. Now we need to act quickly. First, we file for divorce immediately. Second, we secure your property. We impose a restriction on any transactions involving the apartment. Third, if they have already started creating fake debts, we need to challenge all those documents. But how can I know if they've managed to file anything? I asked. We'll request an extract from the registry. Check for any encumbrances on your property, she explained. We'll also request a report from the credit bureau to see if any loans have been taken out in your name. If we find anything, we'll contest it as fraudulent activity. My head was spinning, but Carolina patiently explained everything. How long will all this take? I asked. The divorce will take a few months. The criminal case could drag on longer, up to a year or more, she replied. But the important thing is your property will be protected. They won't be able to do anything. In the following days, I lived in a parallel world. Offices, notaries, lawyers, police. In the evenings, I'd return home, going through the motions. My thoughts constantly returned to Ben, to those 7 years. My friend Chloe, bless her, rushed over with wine and chocolates. Amanda, I can't believe it, she said. Ben seemed so normal. I never would have thought he was capable of this. I didn't think so either, I replied quietly. 7 years, Chloe. 7 years he played a role, and I didn't notice anything. Don't blame yourself, Chloe said, taking my hand. It's not your fault. He's a professional con man. He knows how to deceive. But I should have noticed, I whispered. Some signs. It's always easy to see the signs in hindsight, Chloe said. You loved him. You trusted him. That's normal. And he took advantage of your trust. He's a monster, not you. We sat until late, drinking wine, talking. Chloe tried to cheer me up, and sometimes I actually laughed. It felt strange, to laugh with such emptiness inside. 2 weeks passed. I filed for divorce. Ben was in custody. His lawyer would represent him. Carolina warned he might drag it out, file counterclaims. Let them try, she said. We have evidence of his fraudulent intentions. The court will take that into account. The criminal investigation progressed. Ben and his accomplice, Mia Miller, had indeed started executing their plan. Fake loan contracts, forged signatures. The lawyer who prepared the papers was arrested, and he sang like a canary. It turns out this isn't their first scam, the investigator told me. Miller has carried out similar schemes before. She has a whole network of associates, fake lenders, corrupt doctors, bribable officials. Your husband met her through mutual acquaintances and got drawn into the scheme. So, he married me on purpose? I asked. He had planned it from the very beginning. The investigator was silent for a moment. Judging by Miller's testimony, who has started cooperating, yes. They had chosen you as a target even before meeting you. A single woman with her own apartment in a good neighborhood. Ben needed to gain your trust, marry you, and wait for the right moment. 7 years is a long time, but for them, it was an investment. They planned to get an apartment worth over $10 million. I listened, feeling not pain, but a cold, clear anger growing inside me. My life had been nothing more than a business project to them. An investment. 7 years of pretense for money. But there's some good news, the investigator continued. We found the judge they supposedly bribed. He denies receiving any bribe, and that hasn't been proven yet. Maybe they were just bragging. But the fact of planning fraud and forging documents is ironclad. Both of them are facing real jail time. Months passed. I gradually returned to life, back to work as an accountant. My colleagues, aware of my situation, were supportive. Work helped me focus, to not dwell. Numbers, reports, documents. They demanded concentration. No room for self-pity. In the evenings, I sorted through Ben's things. Clothes, books, personal items. Everything had to go. Each item brought a memory. This shirt, he wore it on our anniversary. This book, we read it aloud together. Every item was tied to a story, a moment from a life that turned out to be fake. It was especially hard with the photographs. Pictures of us at the beach, in the mountains, at friends' birthdays. We looked happy. Ben hugging me, smiling. And in all those smiles, all those hugs, there wasn't a trace of truth. Just a performance. A role he'd mastered. I gathered all the photographs and put them in a box on a far shelf. I didn't throw them away. I couldn't, but I didn't want to look at them anymore. 4 months after that memorable day in the store, the divorce court session took place. Ben was brought from prison. I saw him for the first time since his arrest. He had changed. Thinner, gaunt, unshaven. Wrinkled prison clothes. When our eyes met, he tried to smile. A pathetic, forced smile. Amanda, he called as we were led into the courtroom. Can I talk to you? Carolina touched my hand warningly, but I nodded. All right, speak. Ben stepped closer, guards watching him warily. Amanda, I know you hate me, he began quietly. And you have every reason to. But I want you to know, not everything was a lie. In the first years, I really did care about you. You're good. You were a good wife, I said coldly, but not good enough not to rob me. Ben lowered his eyes. I got involved in this mess out of foolishness. Mia, she convinced me, said it was easy money. Nothing bad would happen. I didn't think it would turn out like this. You spent 7 years preparing to steal my apartment, I said, my voice firm. 7 years pretending, and now you want to say it was foolishness? No, Ben. It was your choice, and now you bear the responsibility. I'm sorry, Ben said, tears in his voice. Please forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but no. I cut him off. You don't deserve it, and I won't forgive you. You stole 7 years of my life, made me believe in something that never existed. And the only thing I regret is not seeing through you sooner. A guard touched Ben's shoulder. Please take your seat. Ben obeyed. I watched his back and felt nothing. Emptiness. This man no longer stirred love or hatred in me. Only fatigue and a desire to be done with the story. The court session was brief. Ben didn't contest the divorce, made no claims. His lawyer was passive. Half an hour later, the judge announced the decision. The marriage was dissolved. All property remained with me, since the apartment had been mine before the marriage, and the evidence of Ben's fraudulent intentions excluded any claims he might have. Thank you, I whispered to Carolina as we left. You're welcome, she smiled. You did very well. You carried yourself with dignity. I stepped out of the courthouse and took a deep breath. Spring. The sun shone brightly. First leaves budding on the trees. The air smelled of renewal. I was free. Officially, legally free from the person who had deceived me for so many years. The criminal trial against Ben and Mia Miller took place 6 months later. I attended as a witness and victim, giving testimony, explaining everything, how Anthony had saved me from disaster. The court was strict. The evidence was irrefutable. Security footage, witness statements, forged documents. Ben was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Mia Miller received 7, as she was the mastermind. When I left the courtroom after the verdict, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Justice had been served. The people who tried to ruin my life had been punished. That same evening, I went to the supermarket. I found Anthony at his usual post. The old man was delighted. Child, he exclaimed. I'm so glad to see you. How are you? How was the trial? It's over, I said, a genuine smile on my face for the first time in a long while. He was sentenced to 6 years. I'm free. Anthony hugged me fatherly. Well done. I knew you could handle it. You're a strong woman. Thanks to you, I said. If it weren't for you, I can't even imagine what would have happened to me. I just did what I had to do, Anthony repeated. But the important thing is for you to keep moving forward, to live. You're still young, and your whole life is ahead of you. I nodded, wiping my tears. I took a box of chocolates and a bouquet of flowers from my bag. These are for you, as a token of my gratitude. No gift could ever express what I feel. Thank you, child, Anthony said, tears glistening in his eyes. You must come by again. Tell me how life is going. I'll definitely come, I promised. Life gradually settled. I renovated my apartment, changed wallpaper, bought new furniture. I wanted to erase all traces of the past to create something new of my own. The apartment transformed, brighter, cozier. New paintings, new curtains, new pillows. Fresh, clean, free of memories. At work, I was promoted to chief accountant. I accepted. The job took more of my time, which was good. Less time for sad thoughts. My friend Chloe introduced me to her cousin, Thomas, a civil engineer, tall, calm, with kind eyes. We met at a cafe, had coffee, talked. Thomas was an engaging conversationalist. I realized I hadn't had such simple, light-hearted conversations in a long time. We started dating, not often. Once a week. He didn't rush me. He understood I'd been through a lot, needed time. I was grateful for his patience. A year passed since that day in the supermarket. A year that had changed my entire life. I sat on the balcony of my renovated apartment, drinking tea, watching the sunset. The sky was pink, clouds drifted, changing shapes. Below, the city buzzed. Cars, voices, life. I thought about what had happened. How easily everything could be lost. How important it is to trust intuition, heed warning signs. Not everyone is as they seem. But I also thought about the good people. People like Anthony, who didn't walk past. People like Chloe, who supported me. People like Thomas, who patiently waited. My phone vibrated. A message from Thomas. How about a walk tomorrow? They're predicting good weather. I smiled and typed a happy reply. I finished my tea, stood up, and stepped inside. My apartment. My fortress. My beginning. Ahead lay a whole life. A life I would build myself, on my own terms. With open eyes and a vigilant heart. I had walked through the fire of betrayal and emerged stronger. And now, looking back at that day, I understood it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of my true life. What about you? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a profound betrayal, or recognized warning signs that others missed? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I truly want to hear your stories.